speaking to the Messiah, almighty provider. I'm asking about what happened with my experience prior. My baptism by fire, forged to be the iron, swore to fight the wars for all the children of Zion. Praying that I'm maintaining a certain sense of refinement, trying to be enlightened while also seeking alignment. I look to the sky to answer the questions I have struggled with in my mind, but I never happen to find the proper understanding for being.
It's Studio One Tracks on Iowa Public Radio. I'm Tony Dehner. Andre Davis is a rapper and spoken word artist from Des Moines. He's also involved in the local Black Liberation movement. Andre Davis will be performing at the Riverview Music Festival at Riverview Park in Des Moines. Andre Davis is the Artist of the Month for August in collaboration with the Des Moines Music Coalition, and he's here with us now. Andre Davis, welcome to Studio One Tracks.
Oh, thank you.
So you have described your music as spoken word and conscious rap. What do these mean to you and for folks such as myself who might not really know the difference? Can you kind of describe these two styles of music?
So conscious rap is essentially just rapping with awareness. Rapping, of course, as a music art form, has many different avenues and levels of expression. Some raps are just like, hey, we're here to have fun, we're having a good time, we're here to make people feel good. And then conscious rap is more so that piece of we're using music as an art form of expression to help push out awareness, to make people more conscious, to make them more aware of what's going on. Spoken word, however, isn't necessarily a music art form. It's more so of poetry. It's more so poetry, a style of poetry. So it's usually done a cappella, and it doesn't necessarily have to rhyme. It's a little bit more loose with the structures. So essentially, I've just been combining both of those, of taking awareness and put it into a musical art form, but also taking the loose and freeness and the ability to essentially speak truth without being restricted, and combining both of those into all of my performances, really.
We have been playing your song Andre's Prayer on IPR for a while now, but most of our listeners probably first became aware of you and your music when you performed as part of Juneteenth, the movement earlier this year. That was broadcast live on a IPR and Iowa PBS. I think it's still on YouTube. It was an incredible night of music. What was it like being a part of that?
It was amazing. I had done a lot of work with Madison Ray prior to then. So when Madison hit me up, it was like, hey, I need you in this. We're gonna make a great show. And I'm like, oh, absolutely. Like, no brainer. Anytime Madison calls me up, it's like, yo, let's work. I'm like, I'm there. Just tell me when and where. And then I get there and say, oh, you got the whole band back together. So it was a lot of familiar faces. And the experience with working with Madison and the rest of the team has always just been, it felt really personal. Like, this is the vibe we enjoy, and we enjoy being in this space and doing great things together. And we're kind of just allowing people to see us have a good time. And that is essentially the same way it felt on the Juneteenth celebrations. Like, we all do music, we all do deep expressions of ourselves through music, and we enjoy it for when being here with each other. So now we're just going to do it and allow other people to see. So yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed it.
The Juneteenth, the movement concert was also, for a lot of folks, their first live music experience in about a year and a half. Was that your case?
I had a couple performances prior. TEDx Des Moines had came here, I think maybe a month and a half prior. So I think that was my first time in about a year. So yeah, the Juneteenth, the movement performance kind of got me right after that. So okay. Kind of worked out the kinks a little bit.
Did you have a lot of kinks that needed to be worked out? Did the pandemic kind of, as it did for many musicians, kind of wreck your plans for a little while?
I think one of the biggest kinks I had to work out was because essentially when I perform, my level of focus kind of just zones all the way in. into just allowing whatever I'm feeling to flow out. And that happens in two ways. Some ways it's like, all right, I'm really aware of what's going on around me and I can interact with people. And then some ways it leads to like a complete blackout of I don't even remember what happened on stage. I was just completely in myself and feeling out whatever was going on at the time. And I don't necessarily like blacking out and just going that deep into my feelings because I like to pay attention and know if I have to improvise, I can. So I think that was the biggest kink I had to work out. Was like, all right, it's been a year and I know I feel a lot and I want to express a lot, but I still want to have a level of focus where I'm aware of what's going on. And if I need to change something in the middle of it, I can. So I was able to get into that space for the Juneteenth performance. The TEDx Des Moines performance, not so much. I honestly do not remember that performance.
That's so interesting to me that you mentioned improvisation, because I tend to think of rap and spoken word as being very precise with the words and maybe not having a lot of room for improvisation. So that's really interesting to hear from you on that one. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Like, what would you improvise?
So sometimes the first thing that I do is rehearse my spoken word and my raps down to the T, to the point where it can almost become like an autopilot in my mind, where I'm like, I know I can rap this over any beat, over any song, in any setting, I can do this. So since that part of my brain is on autopilot, I know I can rap this. It allows me to be more free on how I interact with people. If I want to change words somewhere in there to make it more fitting for the particular setting, I can. If I want to take a moment and stop in the middle of it and talk to people, I can, and then jump back in. So it gives me a lot more room as far as interacting with people and making sure that their experience in that particular space is unique to them. Because I think that's the major difference between just throwing on headphones and listening to the song and coming to a live performance. Because a live performance is us in the room. We are in the room interacting with each other. So my goal is to essentially make those experiences different than you being at home, throwing on your headphones and just playing the song.
I'm speaking with Andre Davis. He's the Artist of the Month for September here on Studio One Tracks. Speaking of live performances, Andre, you've got the Riverview Music Festival coming up. That's happening September 4th in Des Moines at Riverview Park. And according to the description on Facebook, the event will feature black and brown national, regional, and local artists in one of the most diverse neighborhoods in Des Moines. So how does it feel to be part of this upcoming festival? The first year ever it's happening, I might add.
I'm extremely excited. There's been so many great opportunities that have been flowing my way. And to be in a field like hip hop that is so diverse and that has so many demands as far as expression goes. And for me to just come into the space and say, I'm just going to tell my story and say how I feel. And then people go, we want you to come to this festival full of music and full of artists and come tell your story and tell us how you feel. For me, that's a huge honor, especially in this field of hip hop. So I'm just super excited to come out there, perform, and show people, the work that we've been putting together.
You've got a lot of stuff going on. It's been a big year for you. You graduated from law school in May, and congratulations on that. Do you see any intersection between the law and music? Do they inspire or influence each other?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest ways has been just the music industry, because I think a lot of times as artists, we know that music is something that we love and we look at it as simply a craft. And as long as we can just express ourselves through our craft, that's all that matters. But it is an industry, it is a business, and there are a bunch of other skills and tools that go along with business that don't necessarily have to correlate with the craft. So I think that has been the biggest way that law school and the law have essentially have had an intersection when it comes to music for me. So I'm in a space where I can read through my contracts and I can understand what my licensing agreements are. I can understand how streaming is calculated and what that means for me. And then of course, thanks to Station One Records, they make it a point to also help their artists understand those things as well, the difference between publishing and mastering, and all these other aspects that come along with the industry. So in my mind, law school has been essentially my greatest sword and shield when it comes to doing music and being a part of the music business.
So what is next for you? There's a lot of year left after Riverview. Do you have any plans to record, or are you booking more shows?
So I am coming out with a collab EP with my homie DK. Shout out to DK, man. We're coming out with a 4-track EP called Sacred Assassins, and it's a nice piece of work. We're two artists who spend a lot of time speaking and trying to tell our stories and talking about growth and understanding life and the important philosophical ideas that we try to impose on reality. So we essentially just took a bunch of our long conversations and was like, yo, we just gonna sit there and make songs about these crazy ideas that we have about ourselves and about the world. And then I'm just making a project out of it. So yeah, that's the next big thing is dropping that project and sharing with the people another decent sized piece of work. Cause I know it's been a couple years since When It Rains dropped. And that was my last album. And then we had the single Fight On. So I've been getting a few requests like, all right, when is the next big project? The next big project is coming soon.
Can't wait to hear it, Andre. The Riverview Music Festival, once again, happening September 4th at Riverview Park in Des Moines. Check out the event's Facebook page to learn more about that. Andre Davis will be there. He's the Artist of the Month for August in collaboration with the Des Moines Music Coalition. Andre, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Speaking to the Messiah, almighty provider, I'm asking about what happened with my experience prior. My baptism by fire, forged to be the iron, swore to fight the wars for all the children of Zion, praying that I'm maintaining a certain sense of refinement, trying to be enlightened while also seeking alignment. I look to the sky to answer the questions I have struggled with in my mind, but I never happened to find the proper understanding for being reprimanded by God who flooded the whole planet but sent me the first commandment. I was asking the Reverend to give my family protection. He told me to talk to you if I was seeking perfection. So I worship with a purpose, but you gave me neglection. If I'm made in your image, then come and face your reflection. My cousins were murdered by demons with automatic weapons. If we living in hell, how is life still a blessing?
God, can you hear me, please? Can you hear me, God? God, can you hear me, please? Can you hear me, God? Please, can you hear me, God? Can you hear me, God? God, can you hear me, please? Can you hear me, God? Can you hear me, please? Can you hear me, God? God, can you hear me, please? Can you hear me, God? Please, can you hear me, God? Can you hear me? You swore that you would always walk with me. Time to get the step.
Told me to never question the very essence of the one responsible for my presence, but I'm hard-headed, fury directed at the message of what you did on the 7th. If you're all powerful, why the hell were you resting? Tell me, how can you tell us to never put any doubt in you when death is bountiful? They say that kids are safe without an ounce of proof. I'm not downing you, as the people still hold your name high. I just hold your name accountable for all the obscene automatic machines that ring throughout the hood, causing disastrous scenes and the pain that it brings to many family trees. I've seen monsters of this world, no psychic girl, but stranger things happen where I'm from. Kids dying over guns. I guess you paid the price when you got insufficient funds. You had 3 days of losing your only one. What about mamas that gotta forever bury their son?
God, can you hear me, please? Can you hear me? me? God, please, can you hear me? God, can you hear me? You swore that you would always walk with me. Time to get this
Is
stuff.
it blasphemous to tell you that you abandoned us alone in our environment and all its disadvantages? Blaming us for not overcoming poverty's challenges because we look to you to prove something miraculous could happen in our lives if we kept paying our tithes. When my uncle needed a guide, you pushed him aside. Now they wanna charge him with a homicide because he had a 9 instead of a 9 to 5. So I cry for the suffering of him and other men whose entire life is stuck within the cycle of shooting rifles and ducking them. The role models that they follow got 100 clips and say they better load or get shot while buffering. How are you still good and watch people be hurt? Why did Uncle John's mom die screaming in church? Why did I lose my grandma at the age of 13? Why do my mother's screams ring in all of my dreams? Answer me. One day we all will face oblivion. So kill me now, oblivion. I'll live forever through all the lyrics that I've ever written down. Do you feel it now, oblivion? Oblivion. They always told me that I would never be the one for anyone. I get it now, I'm not what you want. Settle down. You're waiting for the future, but all we ever really had was here and now. I got it figured out, here's what's going on. We walk around wishing we never go, but I know one day we all will face oblivion. So kill me now, oblivion. I'll live forever through all the lyrics that I've ever written down. Do you feel it now, oblivion, oblivion? Kill me now, oblivion. I'll live forever through all the